Hello, and welcome to episode 88, take 5 of Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I am your host. With me, as always, is the five-finger discount himself. You can't see him, Derek
Actually, I was doing
Oswald.
my Booker T because he was the
Booker?
five-time
Yeah, you're just gonna give
WCW
me
champion.
a World Heavyweight Champion, and you're going to give me the Spinneroonie in a second. That was gonna be great,
Absolutely.
We've been trying our level fucking best to record this podcast.
I hope we hit 30 seconds. Otherwise, we will have hosed ourselves on the algorithm, which continues the point I was making in part 4 of the Unseen Show, which is that we are not family friendly and we do this to ourselves.
We are not family friendly. We do this to ourselves. I do understand.
I always do it to myself. That's the problem.
Well, I mean, she had a half hour, but I guess the point here is we do this for you. We are putting ourselves through hell. I am in a fucking prison cell, which is why if you hear an echo, that's what you're hearing, in Ohio, recording this show, because we really should just take this week off and just not do this, and yet.
Yeah, no, we're going to push through this, and we have a limited time to do so because you have to wrap this up before lights out, or else you're going to spend the night in the hole.
I'm going to get a shot, and another shot's going to send me down to SAG, and then, I'm going to spend at least a night. Shots. Okay, but we're going to have this conversation one more time. Derek, Flesh and Blood, anything, go.
The main thing that I've done is I have tried to record a podcast 9 times, but
6.
Again, I'm counting yesterday as well.
7, 8. We're
sure.
not at 9.
So far, we're tempting the Comcast gods.
Oh no, I forgot the Comcast gods were involved too.
So besides that, as I've said quite a few times that the audience has just not had the opportunity to hear, I obviously wasn't able to play in any events because I was at Gen Con this weekend, and prior to that, the previous weekend I was in New Jersey because I was casting the Battle Spirit Saga Pro Tour. Next weekend, Logan and I will be in Ohio casting Alpha Clash, and that's like the entirety of skirmish season, and that's very frustrating for me because I really wanted to put this Uzuri list that I've been brewing for a while now. It's a blitz list out there. I wanted to get reps on it, but I really actually feel like it's well positioned right now. I also just wanted to play with the sideboard rules so that I could get the competitive feel. Like I've done practice games, but it's practice games, right? Until you go into live fire, it's kind of hard to see how things really feel. So I spent the last 2 or 3 days just hunting through the events to see, is there a Friday event? Because I was like, all right, maybe if I get out of work on Friday, I go straight to an event and then I play in a skirmish and then I can pull an all-nighter and drive and cast. And then I was trying to check Sunday events for maybe doing something on the way back. And I was trying to find if there was any middle of the week events, because I know what you're thinking. Nobody does that. But there are middle of the week events where you can get in a fight with a drunk store owner and get called soft on Facebook. So yes. They do exist. We know that. We have proof. And yeah, that's the gist of what I've been doing. I also was reading through the email that LSS sent out just because they sent us something about content creation and the kinds of stuff they were looking for, and it was the first time that I had ever received anything like that, so just kind of felt nice to be included, even if it wasn't necessarily like directed. So I just wanted to make sure that I actually read through everything and understood what they were sending. And yeah, I'm also continuing my trip to Barcelona because I'm going to take my wife to Spain and then also play in the Calling while I'm there. So that is very exciting. And that was pretty much all that I had done for Flesh and Blood. I am keeping an eye on all of the stuff for Bright Lights, mostly because I am going to be playing in that Calling at Worlds, and I know that's a limited calling. So whether or not I decide to dive in on Mechanologist, I still need to know that set kind of through and through if I want to be competitive, and I do want to be competitive, but also because with the reveal of Teklavasen, I need to get this out there. I'm sitting in an Iron Man chair that if you're listening, you can't see. And if you're watching on YouTube, you probably can't see very well because our video is shot as we go through all of these technical issues. But I'm sitting in an Iron Man chair. I have a wall that's just off camera that is covered in Iron Man paraphernalia. And my oldest son is literally named Stark. So it's fair to say I'm an Iron Man fan. And with the new Evo stuff, I just feel like we're going to get a card where you get to wear Iron Man armor in the Flesh and Blood universe, which means, LSS, I'm begging you, if there's going to be a card reveal for this Iron Man armor, naturally that means you've got to give it to Carolina. It's just the right thing to do. And I know that's controversial because I've never got one before, but I just think that this is the move, and I deserve that outcome.
Yeah, it gives you a license to just quit.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
I mean,
yeah,
you know, I can put the the repulsor rays in my mouth and this sweet misery. But yeah, no, just overall, not able to play a lot of Flesh and Blood just because of all of the travel lately. I mean, it's a good problem to have, right? Like, I love card games. I'm getting the opportunity to cover card games. I took my son to his first ever Gen Con and did just a bunch of things the past 2 weeks, and great stuff again coming this weekend. But the reality is I also still really love Flesh and Blood, and I like playing the game, and I definitely like covering the game. And so even though I've got all of these other things going well for me, it still also feels like things are not going well because there's this other thing that I love that I'm not doing, right? Like, it's a weird, you know, first world problems, or, you know, good problem to have, however you want to word it. Like, I just,
Sure.
I have that feeling, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think this weekend at Gen Con actually made me feel more burned out on Flesh and Blood, which is weird, right? Because I didn't do anything in Flesh and Blood at all. Like, nothing. What I did do is enjoy a bunch of stuff that wasn't Flesh and Blood. I got to play Star Wars Unlimited, and I was super skeptical. Like, walking in the door of that game, I was like, okay, I'm a big Decipher guy, and I know this is a Decipher, so I have to go in with an open mind and just try not to be disappointed, because it was the first demo of the first morning, or, you know, we're one of the first demos the first morning at Gen Con, and I was just like, rip off the Band-Aid, see if I hate it. And so I sat down, I played for an hour, and I really enjoyed it. I thought that the game was well built.
I know we're a Flesh and Blood podcast, but I do need to say something. I knew I was going to enjoy it because the gameplay has many similar elements to the Elder Scrolls Legends that I covered for years. I fell in love with that game. It's the reason that I started casting. It's the reason that I made it big for a short bit as a content creator, right? It's the reason I got my Twitch partnership. I've got all of these fond memories, but partially, like, I also just really love that game. But it also takes the initiative system from Artifact, and I'm one of the, like, few people that actually enjoyed that game. I know most people didn't, but I did. So combining the two, I knew I was going to like it going into it anyway. What surprised me is that Stark liked it. So, like, Stark got to demo Lorcana and My Hero Academia and a few other card games, but he played Star Wars Unlimited 27 times over the weekend. And he was getting to the point where, like, he beat other people. Like, he got his first win. So, like, it's clicking with him. And so, like, I think that was the part that surprised me, right? Is that the game definitely has enough depth to it. Like, I think there's going to be this, like, quick learning curve if people are not used to that kind of game, because it is a bit different, right? Multiple zones, attacker chooses targets, the pace and the back and forth of the flow of the game is a little bit different. But just, like, overall, the fact that it was accessible to my son, and that I saw it wasn't just like me and my kid, there were several people going through the line multiple times throughout the weekend. That was nice. They also, hashtag no free ads, right? We got to see, like, cards for the first time. Now my camera's not gonna zoom in very well, but, like, this is the Luke promo for the leader card. They're two-sided because of the way you play the game, right? And then the Vader. So like the card quality was very good. Now that I've got my hands on it, these are my signed copies because we're gonna do a giveaway on Wampa Radio. So I made sure I got extras, but I was really impressed with everything that I got to see. All the GameGenic stuff. So they have a partnership with GameGenic.
Incredible. Yeah.
Fantastic. And it's weird because I appreciated all that, but it weirdly also made me miss Flesh and Blood. So like I had the exact opposite of you. I don't know why, but I was like, oh yeah, this is what it's like to be excited about a card game. Oh yeah, there's this other card game that I'm always excited about too. But I also you have to bear in mind I haven't been able to play a lot lately. So I think that's probably why it triggered like that nostalgia and yearning for me.
Sure.
You get to actually attend your events.
I mean, yeah, but like the game still feels Flesh and Blood. I mean, I get this almost stale feeling, and then when I had something new in my hands, you know, when I had these Star Wars cards in my hands, and again, I want to be very clear. How impressed I was by this game had a lot to do with how polished the gameplay was for a game that is not coming out for months. Whereas playing Lorcana, I kind of had the opposite feeling of, well, this game is now like on the precipice of being released.
Yeah, it's got like a week or a week and a half or whatever it is.
And it doesn't feel polished. It doesn't have that sort of that crisp feel of gameplay, right?
Yeah, there's not the same level of like set cohesion.
And like for me, I think I just lost Derek. So friends, if you're looking at Charmer laughing like a fucking
or
idiot,
if you're listening to the audio and you're wondering why there was a weird jump cut to that, it's because we're just not going to edit that. I called it, so we're going to leave it in.
We got Comcasted, and
I said, you know, we haven't had enough technical problems yet with us trying to record this week. You know, off the air, if you will, granted we're not live, but off the recording, if you will, off the record, I have determined that Logan's Airbnb is haunted. And yes, it has been the site of some sort of ritualistic murder-suicide, and that's the reason we're having technical issues. However, I also have just angered somebody because my internet's been awful lately, and so Comcast had to strike me with the might of Zeus.
Yeah, I mean, there's some veracity to that potentially, because I had some downtime, so I went and used the restroom, and the doorknob just came off my hand, because that's what doorknobs are supposed to do, I heard. I mean, That just makes sense. The way to the basement is barred in this house, so nope, not going down there. The garages are locked, so please, not doing that.
Please tell me that the way to the basement is barred, but that the lock is still on the outside of the basement. It's just like a padlock you don't have the key to. Because it's very important to me to know that the murder basement is for locking people down there.
I guess I didn't look that closely. I will confirm that at some point, that the murder basement is legitimately a murder basement. Just for you.
Andy Lane, we know that she loves a good murder basement.
I can't. I don't know, but I mean, I guess the lucky part is that while I'm a little burned out at Flesh and Blood right now, I'm not burned out on doing this show because I'm still fucking here.
Yeah.
But the newness of everything else is starting to. I mean, I work a lot with Alpha Clash, right? We all know that. We have a show. We're casting an event. Like, we're doing a lot with them. They're great people. I really enjoy doing things with them. You're doing a lot with Star Wars Unlimited, and you're heavily involved there. And you know, your hands in that, and I think that game's very good. I think that game has a ton of potential. There's, I mean, Lorcana, I don't know. Like I opened some Lorcana. Like I rode Line Kana. So for anybody that is wondering, if anybody was insane enough to get to a 3,000 person line for 3 hours to get booster boxes to pay MSRP for booster boxes of Lorcana, I'm right here. Now, granted, the reason I did it was so I could pass out Alpha Clash promos, and also it's because I really didn't have anything going on Sunday. There's no True Dungeons to do, which if you haven't done True Dungeon before, you need to do True Dungeon. If you're curious about True Dungeon and have questions, please ping me. I will preach the gospel of True Dungeon until I'm blue in the face. But I just decided to hop in this crazy fucking line, and I did the line right. In the line, I meet a guy who's trying to offload a bunch of Star Wars ECG from Decipher, which is exactly my wheelhouse. So totally got the in there, like great. We got to the front of the line, and then they found an extra box of products that they didn't know they still had, so that they wound up, instead of being sold out of everything, they had one of everything for when I got up there. So I was able to get one of everything, and the people ahead of me didn't, and the people behind me didn't. But I guess okay. It was the funniest shit, because like I turned the corner to come out of there, like they have you going in one direction so that the flow of traffic keeps going. There's a guy just waiting there. Looked like dude in trench coat in Back to the Future, just like telling everybody as they came out, give you whatever, 250, 350, 450, as people came out. And some people were just snap selling them to him, which great. I didn't feel like waiting 3,000 people in line for 3 hours was worth the like $200 in profit I would have made selling to him. So
but it's not. So like that's the funny thing, right? Let's say you make $200 in profit, but you also stood in line for 3 hours. Like that's my day job. Why do I want to go do my day job at the convention I'm there to have fun with?
Right. I don't. And so I didn't.
Right.
And so yeah, I mean, I had a lot of fun at Gen Con doing things that were not Flesh and Blood. And I didn't talk Flesh and Blood. I didn't play Flesh and Blood. I witnessed one turn of a Flesh and Blood game when I went to talk to our friend Summer in the open gaming room. She was playing with one of her friends, and I saw it, and I'm just like, why are you playing Flesh and Blood at Gen Con? But
see, it's so funny because again, we're just on opposite ends of the spectrum, because I was there and like I was seeing the good reception that Star Wars Unlimited was getting. I was seeing the demos that were being done by multiple Bandai booths, right? Obviously, I cover Battle Spirits, and I'm going to start learning One Piece and some other things here as well. And they had multiple booths, and those seemed to be going well. The Battle Spirits booth, for example, sold out of everything but the Set 2 boosters, or starters, excuse me, not boosters, the starters. So I know that they had a good amount of foot traffic. Like I said, my son and we demoed My Hero Academia on the Universus system, and that felt like Flesh and Blood a bit. Now their system's a bit more like combo oriented, but it's meant to mimic a fighting game, so it's got that back and forth feel. And I was like, oh man, this feels like Flesh and Blood. Now I want to play Flesh and Blood. So like I kept demoing all these other games, and every time I did, I was like, man, I just really wish Flesh and Blood had a presence here, right? Like the more I was interacting with other stuff, it's so funny because like Flesh and Blood was in the back of my mind the whole time, but I was just like going, one, I want to like play Flesh and Blood, and I got to see you and Jordan and other people, but I kept thinking like I love the Flesh and Blood community, so I'm a bit sad that like I don't get to see all of those people like I do in an event.
Sure.
So in my head, I just kept thinking like it would be really cool if they had some presence there, and then I'd have an excuse to go to the booth and maybe see someone from LSS or see somebody from the community, or register for an event, or try to teach my son, through a demo thing or whatever, just because I haven't been doing Flesh and Blood because that one's a bit more intensive, but
sure.
Honestly, I think that was my mistake. The way he was picking up games that we were demoing this weekend really opened my eyes to the kinds of games that I will be able to play with him in the future, because he was picking things up way faster than he had prior. Now, I think part of it also is a motivation thing. There's a big difference between your dad saying, hey, do you want to sit down at the kitchen table at home, versus like the spectacle of going to Gen Con and trying all these things. So I think part of it is he was actually listening, but I don't know. For me, I just, and then obviously like seeing all the Lorcana stuff and the chaos around everything Lorcana related. So for those listening, Logan did ride Lioncana. I did not, because we got up early on Friday, showed up, and the line was already massive. And so I asked Stark, I was like, hey, do you want to get in the line? And he said, do we have to? And I said, no, buddy, like, we're here to have fun. So he said no. And then we got up early on Saturday. He said, do we have to? And I said, nope. And then we got up on Sunday and it was the same thing. So like, it's so funny because like, it's, you know, supposed to be kind of marketed to all ages. And I know that they're trying to capitalize on Disney adults. Like, I'm not an idiot, but the entire point is also to target that younger audience. And yet everything about that weekend was not geared towards kids at all. Like, not at all, right? So like the debut of your like kid friendly card game, and when I say kid friendly, I mean like they don't say, you know, kill, you say, you know,
it's 8+ on the package.
Yeah, you know, it's challenge and defeat and, you know, lore, and they were very deliberate. So we did do the one learn to play with Stark, and Stark did enjoy his time learning to play. So, you know, at least that part was good. But it's just so funny that like they have all of these things like readily on their mind, and then it was kind of just an awful kids experience. Like, if I'm being transparent, you know, sorry if that hurts my chances of working with you, Ravensburger, but like that's the reality. Every time I offered my kid, like, do you want to go do this, he said no, because that experience was not as smooth as the other games he got to demo.
Yeah,
like that's just the reality.
I do love that noted Blitz connoisseur and friend of humanity, Mark Johnson, aka Mo Bogsley, is the person that XO'd Lorcana at Gen Con for the Gen Con challenge.
Yeah.
So congrats, Mo, on a great performance with the inks and the things. Proud of you, buddy, I guess. But I don't even know if you listen to the show, because whatever. But yeah, I mean, and I get it. Like, I think my enjoyment of Flesh and Blood, or lack thereof at the moment at times, comes partially from nothing to do. If I felt like I was preparing for something, I mean, and this comes from not being able to go to Nats, not being qualified for Worlds, although that's in November. So I'll have stuff, you know, I'll have stuff in October, but that's so far away. And that gives me like, so I'm just not incentivized to think about it as much. Then they can say, you know, here's Bright Lights, this wonderful Mechanologist set. I've played actual 0 games competitively of Mechanologist in my life. I've played it in testing as an NPC, basically piloting a thing so somebody could see some interactions. But I've never taken time and played the deck. So it turns off my completionist brain, which is a lot of what kept me kind of grinding in Flesh and Blood to begin with, is to make sure I kept owning everything. I'm not set complete on Dusk Till Dawn because I have no reason to chase down the cards outside of completionist nature. I don't. I have nothing. I have 0 that I'm preparing for. And it's going to be that way until mid-September. Oh, no, it's going to be that way until Bright Lights comes out. Because like the next thing I'm probably going to play that's going to matter, that has consequence, is if I play in the Milwaukee Battle Hardened. And that's it. Otherwise, I'm not. And it's a hard pill to swallow. I mean, one, yes, I do have, you know, still like, we get this email from LSS talking about the type of content they want to see from their content creators. And I'm just like, this checks all the boxes of what we aren't. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, but we do that to ourselves.
Well, I mean, but yeah, we do. You're right, we do. But we do it to ourselves, but we clearly have a very loving and loyal following who have been harassing me all fucking day about making sure they get an episode this week. And
I mean, you're not wrong.
And so, while I understand it, and I get, you know, where they're going with this, at the same time, you have you have a lot of community and content members that aren't that, and we're still pretty much the only show that does what we do. There's no one else that guns for the sitting at a bar with your buddies vibe. Like, they don't. We are unique in that way. And
yeah, but so one of the things that I try to remind myself as well, though, is that while it does sometimes suck to not feel like you're being recognized, right? Like, full transparency, I would prefer to be or at least, have those feelings where, like, you're part of the group, right? Doesn't mean you have to be involved every time, but even if you're like part of the rotation, like when I covered Legends of Runeterra, I knew right out of the get-go, like, I wasn't going to cast every event because they purposefully like rotate people through. But just the fact that I knew that, at some point I was going to get my shot and be part of the rotation, like, that was enough, right? So, like, not even being part of the rotation does kind of wear on me. And I think the one that wears on me, like, harder or heavier is that like, I don't know what else other than just like make regular content I need to do to get noticed for casting. And I think that, and this is, I'm going to also be transparent, this is not necessarily an LSS problem. This is something that myself and some other casters have kind of talked about, is the trend in the direction in the industry. And I think that's just the overall thing. So sorry for this weird sidebar, but basically, when you get into casting and you want to do commentary and stuff, that, if you're going to try to do it well, kind of takes up a good chunk of time, because you're trying to do research ahead of time so that you can tell narrative stories and know what the meta is and learn the game. And then if you're trying to cover more than one game like I do, you're doing that a bunch across a bunch of different games, which means that if you're trying to do all of that and work a day job and have a wife and kids, you don't have a lot of leftover time for additional content, right? Whether that's deck guides or how-tos or whatever. The problem, though, is that and I don't have any animosity to the people who can make it work, but that is now, at least in the industry, trending in a direction where being good at a commentary or a broadcast thing isn't good enough, right? Like, they want you to have higher social media numbers. They want you to make regular content. They want you to do these other things to get noticed. And so it's difficult for me because I want to cast Flesh and Blood events. I'm very open about that. And yeah, like, we do the bar thing here, but like, when I'm on a broadcast, I know how to be professional. I think that I would be just as good of an ambassador for the game as anybody else. That's not a knock against anyone else. That's just more a statement about my own ability and my own belief in myself. But it sucks that I think what bothers me the most is that, like, I actively try to seek people out whenever I go to events and say, like, hey, I would love to do this. And then, like, I haven't had any sort of follow-up. So it's one thing if, like, they are not choosing me for a reason or whatever, but like, I'm not getting any feedback either. So I don't know necessarily what I'm doing wrong. I feel like I'm just shooting in the dark. And so this does then bleed over to our content side as well, right? Like, there's the casting radio silence and then the content radio silence. And so that all does weigh on me. This is my long-winded way to circle back to what I was about to say, which is when all of that does start to weigh on me, I just remember two key things. One, I just love the game and I'd be playing it if I wasn't involved in content anyway, because it's just good. And two, it's that despite none of that direct support, we do still have a lot of people that enjoy us, right? And I think that, if anything, that is a badge of honor that I lean into, because that means that it's not like, oh, they listen to us because we got the exclusive promo or we're doing this giveaway or whatever. It's that they just, like, legitimately enjoy listening to us for some reason. And, I don't want to let those people down, and it makes me feel good. And so if in some ways it's going to sound weird, if you can believe this, but in some ways, sometimes I am, like, thankful that we don't have the outside support, because then I'd have no reason to second guess, right? Like, there's been times when I've covered other games where, the studios, bless them, gave me a lot of additional support and promotion, and I appreciated that as well. But there's always that like back of the head thought of like, you know, do they really like me, or do they like me because I'm, you know, the go-to guy for this game, right? Whereas with this, it's the opposite. Like if they listen to our show, and for me uniquely in an experience as well, because if they're still listening, the only other thing I can say is like, well, maybe they just really love Logan, because a lot of people, if they're listening now, they would have like potentially bailed when Jordan and Abby left, right? So like no LSS support, and I had huge shoes to fill not once but twice, because it was 2 people who left. And so, you know, when people come up and they're like, hey, you know, love the show, or, you know, like this week, hey, where's the show? It weirdly feels good. It keeps my head on straight.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of for segment 1 soul bearing, I guess.
Well,
but
listen, we've recorded 9 times and had disconnects, so at this point, we are drinks deep in our feels, so you're just going to have to deal with it. Episode 88, the therapy session, is what we're going to name it.
Yeah, I'm staring at the clock and going, Jesus fuck, I still have to be up in the morning to work, and I have to edit this thing, because if it's not there bright and early in the morning, the fappers are going to come with their sticks out. I mean, sticks out to bash me mercilessly. So yeah, and I agree with you. Like, I think it's very obvious that I'm doing this. Again, it's the Lenny Bruce maxim, right? Somebody asked him, you know, why would you want to be a comedian? And he goes in this giant diatribe of how shitty the job is, of how awful it is to be a fucking comedian, about how fickle the audiences are, how about people will, you know, turn on you at the drop of a hat, and, you know, you never know if you're walking to a place and you're going to get laughs, or you're going to get arrested, or you're going to get both. You don't know, you know, and you do all of this for enough money to buy a pack of smokes at a bodega down the street, and enough money to sleep in a Roach motel. And so somebody, you know, and the person asking the question was like, okay, but why do you do it? And his answer is, and to be fair, I tried to dodge content creation for a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And I was successful because I fucking knew that I would love it. I knew it. And I did not want to, because I knew that in doing it, I was setting myself up for some form or fashion of disappointment. Now, I thought the disappointment would be that no one was going to care, that no one would give a shit what I did, what I put out there, you know, whatever. And that has been the opposite. People give a ton of a shit, like tons of like dinosaur shit about like Jurassic Park piles where the chick puts her fucking arm in.
Yeah, Ian Malcolm. Oh. That is one big pile of shit.
That's one big pile of shit. That's the type of shit that people give about what we do. And so that is enough. And that's all I need is somebody to if what I'm doing makes somebody's day better, I have accomplished my goal. I'm content. That's it. But I will say that I think that, you know, we come out here every week, 88 weeks in a row now, to do a free ad for Flesh and Blood. Hashtag no free ads, except for our entire show is an ad for Flesh and Blood for free. And it gets wearing, you know, and
yeah, I mean, everybody wants their dad to love them, but I think I'm also just like uniquely situated because mine doesn't. So I'm used to it.
Dead.
Lucky you.
It's not. But the point is, I guess this is a long way of saying that if you're listening to this, thanks. I mean, truly, thank you. It's
yeah, and if you're listening to this and you work at LSS, come to Gen Con next year so I can hug you.
Or, you know, we'll see you at whatever event.
I mean, yeah, that too. I mean, I'll see you at Worlds at a minimum. That was the other thing I was doing. So I talked about the skirmish thing. I'll come clean. I was looking at flights for nationals, even though I didn't qualify. Last year I qualified and then I couldn't go. This year I theoretically like have it open right now and could go, but I didn't qualify. So it's like,
You could always buy a PTI if you wanted to for
yeah, I know,
nationals.
but like the
That seems
Barcelona trip's
bad.
not like cheap, so like paying for the PTI. Anyway,
Yeah, but yeah, so we should probably actually talk about Flesh and Blood. I mean, theoretically, we're a Flesh and Blood podcast.
we have been ish.
I mean, ish.
We should talk about
adjacent, at
recent
least.
Flesh and Blood news.
Yeah, let's talk about the Salt Lake City brawl, shall we?
Yeah.
There's a spoiler alert: Icelander won for the 4th goddamn week in a row. This time in the hands of Majin Bay, and it wasn't as clean of a victory this time. By clean, I mean some pretty, there's some misplays or some missed opportunities in the top 8 that Caleb was able to capitalize on, but that's part of it, right? Like if the opening's there, you capitalize, right? And he did, and he took out Michael Feng in the finals in a very close match. The top 8 there were 3 Lexis, 2 Icelanders, a Bravo, a Dromai, and a Phi. So it seems like 5 hero spread is becoming pretty much the standard now.
Yeah, I mean, this looks like a really standard top 8 with the exception of like Phi's replacing Uzuri. Also,
or Azalea.
Yeah, or I was gonna say, or Azalea, or sometimes if we go to 6, it would likely just be 2 Lexi, 1 Azalea, but it would still be the 3 Rangers realistically. So I think we're kind of like settling on what our splits are expected to be going forward. But it's nice and diverse.
I mean, sure. I think we're also going to start taking bets on the next PTI event or better for Classic Constructed. The Icelander doesn't win.
I still chuckle every time I think about the old, like, is Icelander going to LL before Briar thing? Because every day we get closer to that reality.
Closer.
Listen, we also knew Elsa was going to win because it was the Lorcana coming out party. And so Disney had to have the Ice Queen representation, right? Like, that's how this works.
Yeah, I think this is a PTI event, though, so this doesn't have LL points, I don't think. But either way, she's a menace right now. Warmonger's diplomacy makes her basically have an incredible trump card in a lot of the more popular matchups.
Let's rein in ice. Okay, now let's give an ice effect as a generic, specifically built in a way.
Like that blocks 3.
Yeah, like here's the thing: if that thing, I want to say like even if it costed 1, it would be better off. But like even that's not that big of a jump because then you're still pitching a blue to play it, and you use your wizardry anyway. You know, right. So like,
what's it really gonna do?
Yeah,
not a lot. We did have a Blitz battle hardened. That was won by Yuanji Li on Vincent. So interesting.
She's on the board.
On the board. I do want to point out that Chain was legal for this event and did put 2 copies in the top 8 along with a Kasai, 2 Rhinar, a Dash, and a Kano. But that's intriguing to me that somebody in an event where Chain is a possible hero, they chose Vincent and then won it.
So my assumption is that it's just a difference in play style because I think Chain is very good in Blitz right now, but you almost kind of play it like just an aggressive Briar that's like built for Blitz, or at least that's the way I've seen people play it. Vincent feels to me a bit more, not quite to the level of like Skeletor, but a bit more like the old combo Viserai, where you're kind of defensive and you set up your rune chance and then you get a big pop-off turn. It's just that in Blitz in particular, when you get your good combo turn, like you only need 1 good combo to start threatening lethal, right? So I actually think we might start to see her kind of creep up even more as folks kind of figure out how to pilot her, you know?
Sometimes she starts to feel like Bravo without having to take the turn off, you know?
Yeah.
Because your 2-card hands are so good that you don't take turns off necessarily. So it's like 2 turns on, 1
Yep.
turn off instead of 1
Lots
turn
of
on, 1
block
turn off.
3s. The ability, if unless your hand bricks or whatever, obviously, but lots of ability to just like not take a turn off, as you said. But also just so the other thing is that if Blitz does start to drag out just because we have the sideboarding changes, right? So some decks are a bit more prepared than others. Her ability to like deal unblockable damage actually becomes incredibly relevant to the longer those Blitz games go as well, because that's still, you know, an unblockable 5% of your health over and over and over again.
That's very true, and that might have been part of the choice. Like that might have been part of the reasoning. But I found it intriguing. I mean, otherwise it really felt like the top 8 was usual suspects.
Yeah.
For Blitz, you know, Chain, Kasai, Rhinar, Dash,
And the one Kano.
And Kano.
One Casino Kano. Yep, always.
And there was Alexander Vor to no one's shock. Like, right? I mean, you get these Kano masters. So your Mo Bogsleys of the world, your Alexander Vors of the world, who particularly in Blitz just can kind of sit, you know, just do their thing, and they build competitive decks the entire time and pilot them with extreme mastery.
Yeah.
And so there's always the one Kano. You might as well just slot them in.
I mean,
it happens every time.
I played Dragonstorm in Standard, so I know what it's like.
Ooh,
that's basically the same thing.
Me too. It is very
nothing. Oops, I win. Like,
the one time that I won with a Grozoth by actually casting it because they had extricated all my dragons was one of my favorite moments. I actually won with that piece of shit. Because they didn't have any threats left. Made it easy. We do have the 20K Realm Invitational Weekend coming up. Yes. December 1st through 3rd in Columbus. There's going to be a lot going on this weekend, but first it starts with a 20K Invitational on Friday for anybody that's qualified. And now, people, friends, fappers, I told you, I've been telling you, that it was a minimum 5K brawl for a reason. And the reason is that it's now a 10K brawl on Saturday. So
unreal.
There's so much shit. So if you didn't qualify for the 20K, you can still play in a 10K event that's open invite on Saturday. And if that's not good enough, you end up with a 5K blitz on Sunday. So go big or go home time. And this all works to qualify for the Invitational in 2024, which is a 50K. Also, if you're not into Flesh and Blood, which I still am. I want to make sure that I'm clear here. I still love the game. I still think it's one of, if not the best game out there to be playing. There will be other games being played, including Alpha Clash, at that event. So there's, I can give you 35,000 reasons to go ahead and show up in Columbus on the first weekend of December. Yeah, it's going to be a blast.
I would like to add to that because I want to make it also very clear that this is me saying this off the cuff. This is not a planned thing. I don't even know if they'll like this idea, but I'm just going to coin it right now. I'm going to say this is the first ever. This is going to be the inaugural RealmCon. Because at this point, yeah,
I mean, kind of.
I mean, it's like an SCG con, right? Yeah. It's like there's going to be a bunch of games played. It's going to be all weekend long. Like at this point, you might as well just call it RealmCon. It's going to be the end of the year cap off.
Yep, every year we're just going to cap the year off with RealmCon. Apparently, that's the new thing. That's the new hotness, as they like to say. I don't know who they are, but some people probably do. Moving up, and then again, I'm just going to put one more quick plug in. Seriously, this is the weekend you want to show up for. If you have room on your calendar for one thing, this is where I would go. And I'm speaking from the full front of my mouth, because I will be there and I am making sure that nothing gets in the way of me being there, because it is that important of an event and a spectacle. And if anybody knows me, and a lot of you do, I like spectacle. I like real fucking nonsense. And we're looking down the barrel of some real fucking nonsense. Like fire code levels of bullshit. So, as in we have to inspect fire code to make sure it's actually legal. But legality be damned. You'll see some pretty crazy shit if you show up on that first weekend in December. So mark your calendars, plan on being there, we'll be there. So if you ever wanted to meet us in person, there's an opportunity right there. You can take your time to brush up on Flesh and Pod linguistics, because we speak our own language around here, which is copious uses of the word fuck interspersed with small nuggets of truth and real moral high ground and virtue. Forgot virtue. We are very virtuous around here. If you don't believe me, look up the actual definition of the word virtue.
I don't know, man. It sounds like some weird virtue signaling to me.
That's the point. I'm literally signaling.
Yeah.
You know what? Fuck it. We tried to teach this to Stark, where if you have to explain the joke, it's no longer funny. It just isn't. And then you have to come out here with your goddamn Smucker's face and fuck with my joke on purpose, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to drown you in a piss-filled toilet right now.
And
so
I would like to just put that last 10 to 15 seconds of audio on repeat every time we talk about why we don't have a spoiler card.
I wonder. Yeah, we don't wonder why.
I mean,
honestly.
we might be sponsored by my local casino, but
I would take that. Like, I'd take a casino sponsorship. That sounds great.
I mean, I would, because they would just get it all back.
Well, I mean, yeah, they'd be smart to, because we would just redonate.
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
Listener questions.
We're gonna take listener questions. It is. We got a 3-pack here to address. The first one's from Papa Mike. If I want to start selling the occasional higher value card, think around $100, what platform do you recommend I use? So I've never sold much Flesh and Blood because reasons.
Yeah.
But I think that I would initially probably investigate local Discord groups first. Just, as most local Discords have a buy-sell trade channel. Our Discord has a buy-sell trade channel. There's also the larger Flesh and Blood Discord, which has a buy-sell trade channel. If you're looking for more of a seamless, in-person type of transaction with minimal fuss, obviously vendors at a variety of events. Now, granted, you're not going to get the kind of prices you would trying to sell to somebody who is buying the card for personal use, but it is a cleaner, easier transaction almost every time. Might I recommend the Realm Games? And so, I mean, your mileage may vary either way. If it's something where almost every time that I'm looking to sell something, I'm offering it to locals first. Mainly because keeping things in the community and offering, things that maybe people are looking for locally, one is a feel good, two, it's also the easiest transaction. If you're, I know a lot of people sell on TCG Player, but that's and eBay and stuff like that. But I don't like the fees. I don't like the anonymous nature of it. You kind of don't know who you're sending things to. There's buyer protection, but sometimes those buyer protections are so aggressive that they can just say whatever they want to about the seller, and the buyer protections automatically cover them and they screw you. So that's, again, another reason I prefer local stuff more. But I would probably start on like local, like Discord groups or Facebook groups or whatever. Derek, did I lose you?
No, I just don't have a whole lot to add. The only time I've sold Flesh and Blood cards was like, I think somebody gave me $20 for some Majestics like a long time ago. That's it. Like I keep everything, or when I have extras, I try to trade for the things that I don't have. Even when I do it with vendors. So Pro Tour Baltimore, I traded stuff into the Realm, I traded stuff into MinMax, and one other vendor whose name is escaping me right now. But like I'll just trade stuff into vendors and then use that to get other stuff that I'm missing. Even locally, like he said, I'm in several local Discords, so I will organize trades through there. The like highest value transaction, if you will, I had was when Tales of Aria first edition like just released, and there was still kind of a scramble for cards and things. To give you a point in time, Corshams were about $500 back then.
So we're talking like first 2-3 weeks.
Right. And I had opened 2 Corshams in my 2 cases because I got really lucky. And I was trying to get the rest of my legendaries from the set. So like my goal was to basically trade the extra Corsham for the legendaries I didn't open. And I did that through the North American Facebook Flesh and Blood group. So like I hate Facebook. I want to start there. Like my brain almost fried for a moment there trying to recommend Facebook. I don't want you to log into Facebook. However, the smoothest like not in-person trades and transactions I've had are through that group, just because they also keep track of like recommendations and stuff, and it's pretty well moderated. And that I've done a couple of trades on that particular site. So like if you're trading, that's fine. But if you're just like, if you're looking to sell something, I can't give you a lot of advice because I just haven't sold anything. Like I'm in Flesh and Blood to play Flesh and Blood. I'm not like in it to cash out. You know, I like the game, so.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Next question is from Vintox. I know for a fact it's like people are like, oh, a Vintox question every week. It's like, yes, he wrote down a list of questions that he cycles through because he didn't want to dump them all on us at once. But the problem is he's now adding to the list, and so I don't think he's going to find bottom anytime soon. But this question is, with the news of the new metrics set, I'm looking at the spoiled and existing heroes. The point of Data Doll comes up with her unique characteristics. How would you go about fixing Data Doll, and what does her demi hero look like? Derek?
This is a tough one because she has, I think, a very powerful ability, and obviously the weak spot is the 3 intellect as a result. So if we're going to do something with a demi hero, I think that it's got to be something along the lines of hard to accomplish, but with a big payoff. And the demi hero is probably honestly just an updated version of her. It's like Data Doll Mark 3 instead of Mark 2. And it's got a 4 intellect and maybe one other thing, but maybe to get there, it's like you have to, you know, banish 5 items that are in play or whatever, right? So like you get all those free items and maybe you get some value out of them, but then if you want to like amp up your value, you also have to kind of reset yourself, right? Like you're upgrading, so you like reboot from the start and then something else happens. This is obviously not super thought out and tested, but like this is what I kind of keep coming back to. Whatever the demi hero is, it would be Mark 3. And it's got to be, I think, something that offsets what many view are her drawbacks, similar to Levia in many ways, right? I think that Levia had been better than most people were giving her credit for a long time, but I've always said that I think people were scared of the the RNG and scared of like losing games to what they felt like were things they, didn't understand, or they felt like the drawback was too big. And I think Data Doll is kind of in a similar position where I think people are too scared to try her out because of the drawback. So even if you had just a demi hero that was enough to say like, hey, there's a change you can offset that thing that scares you so much, enough to generate interest, that might be good enough.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see it the same way, where you just, because you need parts to upgrade Datadol, right?
Yep.
And those would be items. And then, so a certain number of items or certain items of items of a certain type. She goes up in intellect, maybe even a blank hero power but goes from 3 to 5. But you would definitely need to put in some work to get there. It can't be something easy to do. But I guess that's where I would go to start with her. I mean, honestly, the Iron Man suit demi hero for Tekla-Vossen probably interests me more, because that's, effectively making Iron Man.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. But yeah, so I think
I don't even
think
know
with her,
why we think it's going to be Tekla-Vossen, for the record. It could be anybody. I mean,
it could be a boat. Yeah.
built that thing in a cave with a box of scraps. So clearly it can be replicated.
Tekla-Vossen didn't, though.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that was definitely Iron Man. Last question is a non-question from Big Lou, who states at the beginning, not so much a question, but a series of thoughts. So with Bright Lights sealed being only 4 packs instead of the typical 6, this will impact the future of Fab Limited, especially for Team Sealed events. I know they shorted the packs for the last Team Sealed event, pulled less interest than expected, and with this change coming, with single-class draft sets for the foreseeable future, I feel it could shrink interest further and be less enticing. Could be even fewer packs per team and less interesting deck building. As TCG fans, I know we love to speculate, so with what info we currently have about the set, let's speculate. Yes, let's. I do feel like this is constricting Sealed a little bit, but when your set is balanced around a single class, you don't need as many packs to make an actual legitimate deck, because you're getting playable cards in every pack. I do see exactly. This is also there is a logical piece to this, and that's what I just said. However, I am a jaded motherfucker, so I 100% see we can do more with less scenario too, and that also works. But I think that with this being a set balanced around a single class, that 6-pack Sealed starts to feel like blitz decks, and that's kind of against the tenant's the wrong word. That's against the spirit of Limited, and to me, that's why it makes perfect sense for me to kind of drift back to 4 packs instead of the typical 6. Team Sealed, it's just going to depend on heroes. It's going to depend on how the hero spread works. We don't know enough, and I love to speculate as much as the next person, but we literally just don't know. So it's very hard to speculate in that. Now, Smuckers, I see you gritting like a fucking maniac. So whatever you need, just go.
Okay, so Team Sealed is actually the reason I'm most excited for Bright Lights over any other format. It's no secret or surprise that limited formats are my favorite. Team Sealed is my favorite format in Flesh and Blood, period. But let me tell you why specifically Team Sealed is what has me jazzed at the thought of a single class limited format. If you did Team Sealed for Uprising, let me tell you how your team deck building went. Here's a pile of Ninja. Here's a pile of Illusionist. Here's a pile of Wizard. And then we fight over the 4 relevant generic cards we opened from our pool. That was the deck building. Outsiders gets a little bit more interesting. Still 3 classes, but because of some split cards and identities, you kind of fight over a larger handful of cards, but it still wasn't a lot. A lot of those decks still kind of built themselves. It really just came down to, like, did I open more stealth stuff for Arachne, or am I on Uzuri as the assassin person, etc.
Witch Ranger, Witch Ninja, Witch Assassin. Yeah.
All of us playing the same class means we're all fighting over the same cards. So for a true team feel, the teams that know what they want to do, the teams who practice together, the teams that have a plan will be the most rewarded. So from an actual team sealed point of view, this has the potential to be the most exciting limited format that we've ever had. That alone has me jazzed. And then as far as the 4-packs to 6-packs, listen, we all like to open more packs. So it's a bummer in that, like, you hear, hey, I'm opening less packs. But if you are an LGS or a retailer or whoever and you're running your events, keep in mind that that's just for the deck building rules. So in my mind, if you're still wanting to just charge what you would for 6-packs anyway, and then throw them at folks as for additional prizes, but they're just not part of the deck building, so everyone gets a door prize of 2 extra packs for showing up, or you expand your prize pool, whatever, nothing's stopping you. I don't think you're going to get any sort of rollback on that regard. So people will still open product. People will have fun. It's just a smaller pool, as Logan said, because everything's going to be a lot more playable. But I really truly feel like this is where, like, deck building and decision making is going to matter a lot in just regular sealed, but the most in team sealed, because this is definitely going to be we all kind of want the same stuff. I do think there will be some deviations, right? Obviously, Teklevasan is meant to have the Evo stuff, and so there's going to be some stuff that just wants to be played with him, but I just don't see them doing a single class set and then having things be divided on hard lines the way like Uprising and even to some extent Outsiders was. This is going to be a new era for Flesh and Blood Limited, and especially Team Sealed. So I am jazzed for this. Now, again, set could prove me wrong, but I think they've been moving in the right direction the last couple of sets. I think they're going to continue to trend in that direction as far as the limited formats go. So I'm that's my speculation. I am not like less enticed at all. Like the moment I started thinking about Team Sealed, I was like, oh, okay, that's what I want. I want to play in as many Team Sealed events as possible. And I want to do it. And this is the other thing too. I want to do it with the same crew. I want there to be a reason for me to like actually form a quote unquote team and build with them and play with them and know how to build those things together, and then not have it just be like, you know, here's 3 warm bodies because it's, you know, I'm going to pick Fi, you're going to pick Iceland or whatever, and then we're in our lanes. You know, like you could have done that with a stranger. This is going to be way different.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Derek?
Yes.
We did it.
We did it.
We're done.
We're done.
This thing is recorded. I'd like to thank you all for listening. I would like to give a shout out to our patrons. Shout out. I don't have the Patreon login on this computer, and
even if you did, trying to get to it would break it. Like, let's be honest. We are duct taping this thing together right now.
So in the interest of a functional episode, you know who you are. Thank you. Good enough. If you need to contact us about that, you can always reach us on Twitter or X or whatever.
Twitter.
At FleshPod. Twitter, sure, it's great. You can also send us an email at fleshandpod@gmail.com.
And send us a fax.
Nope. I guess you do have the faxes that go to email, so that would work.
Smoke signals.
Yes, I do see those. If you would like to subscribe to our Patreon, you can always go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. There are 6 tiers. I remembered this time. The link is in the show notes, so you can kind of investigate and peruse at your leisure. But
we've shed way more than 6 tiers trying to record this week.
Oh no.
Yep.
No.
Snuck in one last pun at the end.
You miserable bastard. I don't like this. I'm just deflated all of this. Where can they find you?
You can find me still trying to record this somehow in the future because my hard drive will get wiped once this ends. Just kidding. No, it's going to be successful, obviously, because you're listening to it at this point. But you can find me on Twitter at that Charmer, but it's Charm3R. On Twitch and YouTube, it's just Charmer. And as a weird, like, I guess, pre-promo or whatever. I'm in the process of redoing my office, but I finally got my AC fixed, and I've got my sit-to-stand workspace built, and the stuff for mounting my camera is coming tomorrow. So I'm hoping before I leave this weekend, but at least some point here in the next 10 days or so, I will have my new setup ready to go, and I will start live streaming again because my partner anniversary is coming up and I want to celebrate that. So you might be able to actually find me on YouTube and Twitch. And then the most important one is you can find me in the Flesh and Pod Discord because we have a great community there, and you can always ping me easily there.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best place to find me as well. You can find me on Twitter at Logan Peterson, but you can also find me in the Flesh and Pod Discord. That is the best place to find me. You can also find me doing bi-weekly episodes on the Clash Ground podcast alongside Derek. You can also find Derek doing weekly podcasts alongside Flake and Eric Lundquist, aka Doa, on Wampa Radio. So you can, we're everywhere at this point. We are fucking nationwide. So
And we're on your side.
And we can also never again. You can also find us casting Alpha Clash this coming weekend on the Realms YouTube and Twitch channels. So if you ever wanted to see us do this shit and try to make sure that I just don't say what the fuck was that on a live stream, tune in. You never know what's gonna happen. Man, I got nothing else. I'm just ready to end this. How about you? I mean, like, this sweet existence, but also this show.
Yeah, we love you all. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.